Hi guys, I'm going to be talking today about my preterm labor and delivery, and my son is almost 2 now, so it was time, long overdue, that I filmed this video. So I'm just going to jump into it. I went into labor with him at 29 weeks and 4 days, but I gave birth to him at 31 weeks and 4 days. So let's jump into it. Monday, March 13th, 2017 was my 28-week doctor's appointment. I had no concerns at this appointment. Everything went really well. Baby was measuring appropriately. Heart rate looked great. And he was sideways. He wasn't head down. He wasn't breech. So everything looked great. My doctor said, "You're doing wonderful." I had actually gained some weight. I was really sick during this pregnancy and I had lost 20 pounds, but I had finally started to gain 6 pounds back. So she was extremely happy about that. I had lost so much weight so fast at the beginning of my pregnancy that I was having to drink Ensure just to keep some meat on my bones. This kid did not like food. So fast forward to Thursday, March 23rd, 29 weeks, 4 days pregnant. I was at work. I work for a doctor. I'm a receptionist. On Thursdays, he sees patients in the morning. And then in the afternoon, all of us ladies, we clean. So, hi Lucy. So he got done seeing patients a little bit earlier than normal. So it was around 10 o'clock we started to clean. I was vacuuming, cleaning bathrooms. I went to go to the bathroom, and this is when TMI comes into play. So there's gonna be a lot of TMI moments in this video. So if that's just not for you, if it makes you uncomfortable, I completely understand. This video won't be for you. So that's just your warning. I went to the bathroom, and when I wiped, I noticed that I had lost my mucus plug. I had never seen a mucus plug before, but I knew that this was my mucus plug. So I went up front and I told our office manager, and she's kind of like the mama of the office. So she's like, just stay calm, call your doctor's office, see what they want you to do. My doctor is normally not in the office on Thursdays. She's normally doing surgeries. So she was actually in the office that day. This was around 10:30 when I called. The nurse didn't seem overly concerned. She's like, "Let's just see you this afternoon." I think she had said to come in at like 1:30. I said, okay. So the office manager told me to sit down, put my feet up, drink some water, just relax. Well, I started having a lot of back pain and Braxton Hicks contractions. So I called the doctor's office back again. I didn't want to be one of those people to call and bug them and be like, "No, I'm really concerned. Can you see me right now?" But I felt like I needed to be seen sooner rather than later. So they said, yes, come in now. So I called my mom. My husband was in town, but he was doing something with his dad. They had rode together that day. So I just called my mom and said, "Hey, could you go with me to the doctor's office?" I did call my husband on the way to the doctor's office. I said, "I don't know what's going to happen." I said, I'm either going to come back to work or I'm going to have to go to the hospital. So just have your phone on you. So we get to the doctor's office. They got me right back. She did a vaginal ultrasound, and baby was head down. He was ready to go. My cervix was funneling and shortening. He was practice breathing, but his heart rate was only 97, so that concerned her a little bit. She checked me. I was 1 centimeter dilated and 70% effaced. So she said, "I want to send you over to the hospital and let them get you on the monitors, check you out." And she felt my stomach, and she said, "You're having a contraction right now." And I could feel it by this point. So they gave me a shot in my hip of steroids to help develop baby's lung in case I had to deliver early. And then they did what's called a fetal fibronectin test, where they swab the inside of me, and it's supposed to tell them if I'm going to be delivering this baby within the next 2 weeks. And they kind of explained this test to me. It's kind of like a catch-22. If it comes back yes, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to deliver in the next 2 weeks. If it comes back no, doesn't necessarily mean that you won't. But they have to do the test. So they sent me on over to the hospital. The hospital where I was wanting to deliver does not have a NICU team. It is not planned. It's not a place that plans to deliver premature babies. So I got there, and I don't even remember calling my husband to tell him that I was going to the hospital, but I did. He told me, I said, did I call you or did my mom call you? He said, you called me. So we get over to the hospital. My doctor had already beat me there. So I get in bed and they hook me up, and baby's heart rate has come back up. He's moving, kicking around. He's just looking fabulous, being a wiggle worm and whatnot. So she goes ahead and checks me again, and I'm 1 to 2 centimeters now, 75% effaced. They hooked me up to fluids in case I was dehydrated. They started a magnesium sulfate drip to help kind of develop baby's brain, help slow the contractions down. I had a ton of things going in me. And my doctor made the best decision for me and baby. She felt like it would be appropriate for the ambulance to take me to Columbia, which is an hour and a half away south from Kirksville, where there is a NICU team equipped and ready to handle him if he were to come early. I was sad. I remember crying, telling her that I was really upset. I wanted her to be the one to deliver him. But she had called and talked to the doctor working the labor and delivery floor that day and felt comfortable with her handling me and baby boy. So the ambulance gets there, and before the ambulance takes me, the nurses go ahead and give me some pain medicine in my IV because I was starting to feel these contractions. They were starting to hurt, more back labor than anything. So the pain medicine kind of made me feel loopy. It honestly relaxed me, and I'm glad that it did because it made the ride from Kirksville to Columbia a lot more manageable. I had a great ambulance, paramedic drivers. They really helped me relax. So my husband followed the ambulance in my car, and then my parents and my sister, I also work with my sister. I'm the receptionist, she's the nurse. She rode with them. And we get to Columbia, and they take me to the labor and delivery floor, and I get up there, and then I remember the nurse telling the paramedics that my fetal fibronectin test had come back positive. So the nurse checks me, and I'm still only 1 to 2 centimeters, 75% effaced, so I didn't progress, in the hour and a half. Well, it wasn't an hour and a half, the ambulance went faster than that, but I did not progress anymore from Kirksville to Columbia, so I was very, very happy about that. So they brought in an ultrasound machine and looked at baby boy, and got some measurements on him to make sure that he was measuring appropriately. And he was measuring 29 and a half weeks. I got to see his little leg, his feet. He was being a wiggle booty. So that was really neat. My contractions had slowed down at this point. They were starting to space out. They did go ahead and have a nurse from the NICU team come in and talk to my husband and I. And they had this scrapbook that they had made of what premature babies look like, what they could go through, and their chance of survival. So they came in and talked to us, and it was really helpful because it gave us a look into what our baby could look like and some of the difficult things that he might have to go through. So that was really helpful. If we did have to deliver at 29 and a half weeks, his chance of survival was very high. I think it was like 90% or something. I mean, it was a good percentage. Not saying that he wouldn't have complications, but it was a good percentage. So she left, and at that point, it was getting later at night, and my dad and my sister, they went home, and my mom stayed, and obviously my husband stayed. And so they just continued to monitor me through the night. And at this point, I was still on the labor and delivery floor. The next morning, my nurse comes in around 5:30, 6 o'clock, and she says, your contractions have really spaced out, so we feel comfortable moving you to the antepartum floor. So I did not know what that floor was. So if you're not familiar with that floor, that is where women who have to be on bed rest for months or have pregnancy complications, that is where they stay until they deliver. So that is the floor that I was moved to. They unhooked me from my monitors, which was weird. I honestly didn't like being unhooked from the monitors because I liked that they were able to keep such a close eye on him. But that was okay. That was a good thing that they were unhooking me. They felt safe. So the high risk doctor came in, and I really liked him. Like, he just had a really good sense of humor. He wasn't taking anything too serious, and that helped me relax. So he came in, he checked me. Again, I was only 1 to 2 centimeters dilated, 75% effaced. So that was great. Did another ultrasound. He said that yes, my cervix had shortened, but it wasn't the worst he'd ever seen. He told me that he felt comfortable that he could get me to 39 weeks pregnant. Looking back, I understand now that he told me that for my own peace of mind, and I'm not mad at him for that. I honestly appreciate it, because had he not said that, I would have struggled a lot more being on bed rest than what I did. But he told me, he goes, even though I feel confident that I can get you to 39 weeks, I would feel good getting you to 32 weeks. So I was put on bed rest, and he was going to let me leave the hospital. As happy as I was to be going home, I was also really scared. You know, I was at the hospital. I was in a safe place. I had nurses. I had doctors there. The NICU team was close, but I wasn't a doctor. And the high-risk doctor was saying that this was okay. So I said, okay, let's go. So on the way home, here comes TMI. They had given me a lot of fluids, and so I had to stop quite a bit to use the bathroom. And each time that I would stop, I would pass a little bit of blood clots, and when I would wipe, I would have blood on my toilet paper. So I called back to Columbia Hospital and talked to the nurse that had been with me, and she said, this is completely normal. You've had a lot of people checking you. You've been checked multiple times. You've had 2 vaginal ultrasounds. Your cervix is irritated. Made sense. So I went home to be on bed rest for 2 weeks. And then I was planning on going back to work. If you know me, you know that I love my job. I love my patients. So I wanted to go back to work. So we live 30 minutes north of Kirksville, where the hospital is. So when my husband would go to work of a morning, he would take me to Kirksville and take me to my grandmother's house so I could be close to the hospital if I needed to go. And that was honestly just a blessing, because I was able to spend time with my grandma and my grandpa, and it was just really nice. It's memories that I don't get back. Even though it wasn't the best case scenario of why I was there, it was still really nice. So let's see, like midnight on April 5th, I was 31 weeks and 3 days pregnant, and I woke up and went to the bathroom and noticed a little bit of blood on my toilet paper. I had not bled from the time that I got home from Columbia after passing those clots and whatnot to this point. So I called the hospital, and they were familiar what was going on with me, and they said, you know, you should come in and get checked out. So, and I could tell that I was contracting. They weren't awful, but I could tell that I was contracting. So my husband and I, we got up, we went there. I called my mom. I said, I just want to let you know I could be going back to Columbia today. Just prepare yourself. So we get there to the hospital, and I had a fabulous nurse. She was actually pregnant. She was 20 weeks pregnant. She was great. And she checks me. I'm 2 centimeters dilated and 80% effaced. So I had changed just a little bit from like 2 weeks ago when I was in Columbia. So it wasn't awful. I was contracting, but the monitor wasn't picking them up. I don't know if the monitor on my belly wasn't in the right place. I don't know. But the on-call OB, who was not my OB, he never came in to check me himself. He never came in to talk to me. He just told the nurse, since it didn't look like my contractions were picking up, or since they were spaced out and they weren't really progressing me, he was going to go ahead and send me home. So it was about 3:30 in the morning and they discharged me. And I remember going downstairs and being in the lobby of the hospital while my husband went to go get the car. And I remember bending over and having to breathe through a contraction. I knew I was in labor and I knew that he was coming. So we went to my mom's house because she lives in Kirksville. And if you hear my husband, he just came in from outside. And so we went to Kirksville and my husband slept. And again, I was having contractions, so I didn't really sleep. But my mom was off work. She's off work Wednesdays. She was watching my niece, Scarlett. So I stayed there at her house. That way I could be close to somebody. Somebody could take me to the hospital if I needed to go. And I just timed my contractions all day. I downloaded a contraction app on my phone and just timed them. And I mean, they were spread out. They were anywhere between 8 and 15 minutes, and they weren't lasting very long. And I could still breathe through them. So my husband got off work around 5:30, and he goes, what do you want to do? Do you want to go home? Do you want to go to the hospital? I said, I don't want to go back to the hospital because I don't want to go to the hospital and them to tell me, this is all in your head. Nothing's changed. You're still 2 centimeters, 80% effaced. So I said, let's just go home. So we get home 30 minutes away from the hospital, and my poor husband, he was exhausted. He fell asleep in his chair around 7:30, and I was on the couch. I had a heating pad on my back because my back was hurting. I was having back labor. I was drinking a ton of water. And we either had Friends or The Office playing on Netflix, and so I was trying to keep my mind a little bit distracted. So I fell asleep, and I kept waking up throughout the night, and I could still breathe through my contractions, but they were getting closer together and lasting longer. So around 6 that morning, I had gone to the bathroom, and, TMI, I had this clear jelly-like substance, and I woke my husband up, and I said, I think my water broke. And he goes, okay, it's time to go to the hospital. I said, but before we do that, I'm gonna take a shower. That was my thinking. Before we go to the hospital, let me take a shower. He was not happy with me. He was ready to go. He's like, this is it, it's go time. I got in the shower, and I remember taking a shower, and I couldn't breathe through these contractions anymore. So I get out of the shower and I call the hospital, tell them what was going on, and they're like, yeah, you absolutely need to get here. You should have been here like 2 hours ago, if not sooner. So what should have been a 30-minute drive was more like a 15-minute drive to the hospital. We get there, and the day before I was able to walk up to labor and delivery. This time I could not. I had to be wheeled up, and previously I had said that my OB does surgeries on Thursday. This was Thursday, April 6th, 2017. So she was already there. So she saw me come up, and I looked at her and I said, I think I'm dying because I was in so much pain. So they wheeled me into a labor and delivery room and got me set up on the table, and I was 5 centimeters, 100% effaced. She said, you are without a doubt having a baby today. So I remember thinking, okay, I'm gonna have some time to wrap my head around this. I'm gonna get my epidural. I'm gonna have some time to call family, call friends, and just really get my head in the right space. She said that she had to go perform a minor surgery. It would only take her 10-15 minutes, and she would be right back up. She did tell me, however, she would not be transferring me to Columbia because I would more than likely have him in the ambulance. So before she left, I told her, I said, I would really like the epidural. I'm in a lot of pain. She said that they needed to take my blood first and make sure I did not have any infection before they went and put a hole in my back. Understandably so. By this point, my husband had contacted my mom and my sister, and they were both there helping me breathe through contractions, as well as my husband. And then the doctor comes back in. I hadn't gotten my epidural yet. They had just taken my blood. She came back in from her surgery, and she said, let me get you something for the pain, just something in your IV. So they gave me fentanyl. Helped for like 1 contraction, and that was it. But it was some relief for just a little bit, so I'm still very grateful. she goes to check me again, and this had only been about 30 minutes to an hour since she had checked me the first time. And before she checks me, I said, at what point do you contact Columbia NICU to have them come here so they're here when the baby's born? And she said, when you reach 8 centimeters. And so she checks me and she looks at me and she goes, you are 8 centimeters dilated. She goes, so I'm going to call them. And I could not believe that I had already progressed that much in such a short time. At this point, while she's calling them, the anesthesiologist comes in, got my blood work back. Everything looks great. He said, I cannot give you a full epidural. I cannot put the catheter in your back because you are so far along. He goes, I can give you a shot in your back that will numb you for 2 hours. He goes, I've talked to your OB. She's confident that you will be delivering very soon. So my mom and my sister leave, and my husband helps me. I arch my back. I don't even remember getting the shot because I was in so much pain. Like, he did an amazing job. I definitely want that again come second baby. So he lays me down, makes sure that everything's okay. The epidural shot is taking effect. So my doctor comes back in, and she checks me again, and I'm 9 centimeters. So she gets up, and as she gets up, my legs are still up. My bag of water breaks, and his head comes down. And I hear her go, we need a table now. This baby's coming now. And I hear respiratory support being called. The pediatrician that's next door to the hospital is running from her office over to the hospital. I've got so many people in my room. When my water broke, a huge blood clot came out. She goes, I think you've had a placental abruption, and that is where the placenta tears away from the uterine wall, and the baby can lose oxygen support and nutrients. So he was still looking great on monitors. He was, like I said, he was being a rock star. So, and I failed to mention, before I left Columbia 2 weeks earlier, they had given me my second dose of steroid shots for his lungs. And so that was considered one full dose. So that was excellent. So everybody's in my room. My sister is able to be in there with my husband. Columbia was in the air. They were coming via helicopter. So they were en route. I pushed for maybe 5 minutes. I think I was good and numb, so I was very, very thankful for that. I pushed for maybe 5 minutes, and he came out, and he had a full head of black hair. He came out crying. He was able to be on my chest for a little bit, and he was the most perfect thing I'd ever seen. Jack Samuel, born at 9:22 a.m., 3 pounds, 14 ounces, 17 inches long. A gift from God. My husband cut the cord. They took him over, and they started working on him, and I told my husband to go. Your priority is not with me anymore. It is with our son. So he went, and they got me cleaned up so fast. I don't even remember. Jack was in my room for just a little bit, and they took him to the nursery. Again, he had a full team working with him, and this hospital, like I had mentioned, is not equipped to handle premature births, but they did phenomenal. They were amazing, and I have nothing but great things to say about them. So my husband kept coming in to give me updates, and he was doing wonderful. I heard the helicopter come in. Everybody from the helicopter staff came in. They talked to me. They did go ahead and put him on a ventilator because he was getting tired of having to breathe on his own. So they did go ahead and put him on a ventilator to breathe for him, or help him breathe. So he was there for about an hour after I had him, and then it was time for the NICU team to fly him back to Columbia. So my mom and my husband, they got in their vehicle and went to Columbia, and I stayed. The doctor said that I just needed to stay 6 hours after I had him, and then I could go. So I recovered really well. I was up 2 hours after I had him, walking around, And then 6 hours later, my dad came to get me, and he drove me to Columbia, where I was able to see my son. I honestly, I had a wonderful delivery experience. The only thing that I wish was different was that he would have been full term, but I had a really wonderful birth. They did send my placenta off to pathology, and I did have a placental abruption. So this was honestly the best case scenario, because a lot of times when women have placental abruptions, they have stillborns. So I owe everything to God for keeping my son alive. He was in the NICU for 49 days. And it was an up and down roller coaster, but he did not have any major issues, no issues with his heart, no brain bleeds. He liked his oxygen support. He hung on to his oxygen a little longer than I thought he would, but it was best case scenario, and I will forever be thankful. His story is my absolute favorite, because it just shows you that God is always in control, and he's going to see things through. So that is my labor and delivery story. Jack came home at 6 pounds, 2 ounces. It was just, like I said, best case scenario. His birth story will always be my favorite. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. See ya.